that's the flight, isn't it?
That's the one I like, Ian. Just,
That thing is up there with the Angels. I mean, that's 413. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Delighted to be firstly in our new Calgary store here. Amazing to be finally in our first sort of location that is truly, truly ours. And I have to say, I'm even more delighted to be joined by Mr. Jason Zuback. Great to see you, pal.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here, and a pleasure to be in the brand new store in Calgary.
Today, what I'd love to chat with you about is, throughout your career, obviously, performing at that highest level, the little percentage points matter so much. And I want to talk to you a little bit about fitting specifically. What was it throughout the years that you sort of valued at the highest sort of level when it came to optimizing your equipment?
Right. I was more, when I first got into this, it was about hitting it far and swinging fast.
Raw speed.
And hitting it in the grid. And, we didn't have sophisticated monitors back in the day where we had to sort of use the gold standard. Yeah. Meaning you go hit the ball, you go find the ball, and you record it, right? Wow. So I've got, years of logs of, how far this driver with this shaft went. Luckily in the long drive, everybody hits the same ball. Not the exact same ball, but the same brand and model of ball. Like, for instance, Pinnacle golf ball from the Cushing Company was the sponsor for many, many years. So everybody had to hit the same ball, like whether it be, the Titanium Extreme, the Gold LD, whatever model it was. And I really pushed them. They were a sponsor of mine. I pushed them to have the best ballistics, the best flight, whatever dimple pattern. I leaned on them heavy to produce the absolute longest golf ball. So, that was generally a high compression golf ball, a low spinning golf ball, and, a particular dimple pattern that would lend itself, for the longest carry and eventually, hopefully, the longest total distance with the long drive guys. So, but, initially we had to, just go figure out what driver was going the farthest. And then as things got more sophisticated with launch monitors and such, the original one that I had exposure to was the Titleist launch monitor called the TLM. It was like a
big old unit, wasn't it?
It was like a UFO, and it was on tracks.
I remember those.
The big parameters it would do is ball velocity, launch angle, and spin rate. Those three tenets, like ball speed, launch angle, spin rate, right? And those things are, what we take in long drive, and we try to optimize that.
When we've been chatting in the last couple of weeks, you were explaining to me you've got an injury, you're not swinging a long drive driver right now, you're only doing your gamer 45-inch. How do you manage that swing, your long drive swing with the 48 versus your 45-inch driver, which you were just warming up with and still flies, if you don't want to give it away, but it's still plenty long enough for you. How do you manage the delivery differences between those two?
Right, yeah, I did have this really catastrophic injury where I completely tore my right lat. So in long drive, we can go up to 48 inches long. And my play driver is anywhere between 45 and 46. I kind of fool around in there depending on the weight of the shaft. And
45 must feel short.
It does. It feels like a like a 3-wood, right?
Exactly.
Especially when you go from 48 to 45.
Definitely.
But that 48 is a little different because it's longer, right? And dynamically, if you left the same head weight on that 48 as you would, I like a heavier head weight on my play driver at that 45, like somewhere 206 grams with the tip adapter, and it just lets me feel the head. But
what's the sweet spot for you, swing weight wise? What do you like D4, D5?
Yeah, I really don't care. Okay. I just, for me, I'm looking at I like a shaft, like for my play setup, somewhere, like 55 to 70 grams, somewhere in there. Like I kind of like that 60 gram range. I think for what I do, I think the lighter shaft gives me some advantage because I still want to move it, right? So I don't mind going on that lighter side, and I seem to get that nice performance advantage. If I start going too heavy, then I start losing a few miles an hour, and I always hate losing a few miles an hour.
You wouldn't be who you are if you did.
Right. So I'm always looking at speed coming out, but the like that certain gram weight and particular shaft characteristics. Like the Ventus has performed really well for me. the Patterson, some of the stuff that you see that in long drive quite a bit. They have some great stuff on the play side, and they have some great specialty long drive stuff. Excited to try the new Graphite Design VF.
Sure.
Back, my last Open Division championship came with the old Graphite Design PM702. Some of the Acra stuff has been, the RPG has performed really good for me. The TZ5, TZ6. And then we could talk about long drive shafts, but on that shorter side, like the swing weight, I don't really care. Like I like that particular head weight at 206, and then whatever shaft configuration, and then Golf Pride Tour Velvet M58 round, just double-sided.
Right.
And that one will generally be a little heavier swing weight, right?
Yep.
And then if I push, as we know, when we push it like from 45, if I go to 46, the swing weight, it goes off, it's significantly heavier.
Yeah, just under 6 points for that inch.
Right, but in reality, does that make a difference?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. You're right. It's not like we've gained all sorts of mass.
Right.
I always tell people, make the equation of divide the weight of the shaft by 46 and measure the shaft by its individual weight per inch. Right. And when you add an inch, look at how little you're probably adding, somewhere in the region of 1.7 grams per inch. It's nothing, but it's a magnified force, isn't it? As you extend the sort of mass away from you, it multiplies in force.
It does.
Which is why we use the swing weight scale.
It is. And, when we're kind of going to these subtle numbers, just say from 45, 44 and a half, which we would consider a short drive.
Short,
but that may work for some people, right?
Definitely.
People, they come in, I need 47, I need 46. Well, hey, let's go through a fitting. Let's see, sometimes, a little heavier, a little shorter, that would give us a little advantage. For centeredness of contact, controlling spin, right? Just the quality of strike, where we might, not essentially even lose some club head speed, but we can make it up, like from contact if we did lose club head speed.
Yeah.
But for myself, the getting to this, just all those factors, but dynamically in long drive, as we start marching farther away from the ball, we go from 45, 46, 48 is the maximum we can play.
Right.
If we looked at the swing weight on those, they're really heavy.
If you maintain the head weight, you've got to get down into the kind of, I know Martin was saying, at the Worlds this year, he was, I think, 186 in terms of his head weight, because of how long he obviously likes to play. Big guy, and he maxes out his club head speed with 186. Taking 20 grams of mass out of the head is a lot, isn't it?
Right, that's a dangerous, or it's not dangerous, but it's a consideration, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But, if we maintain that head weight and go, for instance, if I took that 206, that 206 with a tip adapter, I extend that out to 48, dynamically, that's gonna play like super heavy, right?
Yeah.
So that's got like, arm plane implications, swing plane implications, how I'm gonna deliver that club, even like obviously dynamic lie is going to be impacted as we get farther away, right?
We were looking on the grid this year and where they had the little sort of T-patch on the grid. And when we were actually up on the stage, we were doing a little piece, doing our intro stuff. You could see that the peak of that little teeing area, the softer patch, which is very like the turf we're on here, it was sitting about half an inch above the surface they were standing on. So we're looking at it from a dynamic lie perspective, looking at there's going to be a lot of left balls in here because that toe is sitting up now. They're playing longer drivers, and some guys were really smart. They would tee up at the back of the teeing area so that they could actually sole the club, if they do sole it, on the standing area. So their dynamic lie would be, and those are the people who are really thinking about every little percentage point of gain, those aggregation of marginal gains to get the overall effect. There's so much in it.
Right. Yeah. That speaking of that, it's like a little lily pad that they want the guys to tee up on, and that ultimately affects your tee height.
Right.
So if we're used to using a lot of the guys will use a 4-inch tee to increase their angle of attack, right? But if you're if you have another surface that's an inch higher, right? So we're actually increasing your tee height. So that's another consideration. But you're right. Like that dynamic lie, we're going to see more, upright presentation of that, right? And so it is a factor. And, back in the day, I had Cobra with my 5th World Championship win. they made me some 55-degree Langle.
Did they really?
So 4.5 and 5.5 loft of the 450 SZ head at 55. If you ever see one, it has a little Z, and that one was made specifically for me at 55-degree Langle, just to accommodate this dynamic lie angle, or statically and dynamically, because I always like to. I know like some of the tour guys like to present it toe up. And I think the quad data would say, 2 degrees toe up is probably tour average?
Honestly, I mean, depending on your shot shape, but actually probably more like 6 or 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because the guys tend to, because they are so good in rotation, they tend to be a little bit lower on plane, so they present the handle a little bit lower at impact, whereas we're seeing a lot of the people, the average golfers we fit, they can at times be a little toe down,
right, yeah.
and really deflecting that sort of mass up into the air, and they're getting some high toe strikes because they're deflecting the toe down so much.
Right.
So it's a big consideration. It really is.
Well, right, and just that face angle consideration as well. Like as we start, cranking, lie up and dynamic lie, that face is going left more,
Definitely.
right? And then conversely with when we go flatter dynamically, the face starts getting open. So for the average person that's hitting these big wiping fades, that's why the manufacturers, they get at trying to mitigate the slice from center of mass implications, but also dynamic lie implications.
Dynamically, absolutely. Well, let's get you hitting a few. I feel like you and I could go into our own podcast with this stuff, which I would actually love to do one day, because there is so much to uncover, and I think the people who really care about the things that we've been speaking about would love it. So we should try and do that at some point. But let's hit some drivers. Let's look at your data, your launch data, and let's see how you maximize what you do.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Okay, Jason. What are we going to expect to see here from path, angle of attack? Do you have numbers like within parameters that you like to see yourself?
Usually, like when I'm, obviously my volume of practice and my quality of practice with my injury hasn't been, substantial. So, but usually my angle of attack, I'm looking, plus 10.
Even on the course?
Yeah, even on the course, just because it's ingrained.
Sure. That's the movement pattern.
I could do whatever, but that's sort of my stock.
Right.
What I'm, presented there. Usually, I've been, depending on what I'm trying to do, like I'll, path numbers probably be a little bit right. Ideal, for me would be, path like somewhere around 2, face at 1.
Sure. Yep.
Just to produce that little draw, or
Right.
Path 2 left,
Yeah.
face at 1 left, right?
Sure.
And just these tight little, is that going to be reality? Maybe not, right? When I'm, missing it, a couple dimples left and right, but
Right. You like to stay pretty neutral. You're not looking for, I know when Tim Burke was working on his delivery around the time when he was winning his world, he was looking at 6 and 6, 6 up, 6 out, because he wanted to kind of always be trying to sort of shape it right to left. So you love to keep the path neutral, maximize the output with high launch, low spin, with double digits up at times.
Right.
That's what you like to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
That, when we, if we look at like a TrackMan parameter like swing direction, as we know that as the angle attack, depending on our swing plane, but just say at a 45-degree angle swing plane, we know that as we get past the bottom portion of our arc, for every degree or for every degree we're going forward, it's going left, right?
Yep.
So if I'm plus 10 on it, then my swing direction has to be essentially my swing plate is more upright than 45, so it's not quite 10, but my swing direction is probably going to be 8 degrees right, just so I can, if I want to, zero out or get that path to a point. So, but I typically will try to get those path and face numbers pretty tight, because I don't want to see a lot of curvature.
Right.
And curvature, it's not a bad thing, but obviously it's eating up distance. And when distance is the ultimate factor, we want to mitigate any kind of that left to right or right to left movement on the ball, just because we want to maximize linear distance.
Totally. Okay, show us a few.
Sure.
You said when you were playing sort of and winning your championships, you loved that high fade. You love to see it just be, because people always talk about, a fade is safer and these types of things. And, you would just find that you could take advantage of your delivery conditions by having that little drift to the right.
Yeah, and, it kind of comes from when I was a junior and I played, quite well as a junior golfer and amateur. And I used to love to draw the ball.
Right.
And, when you're a kid and, that draw will get you some advantage with distance. But as I progressed in my, down the playing road, that draw hook, can lead to some, not particularly well scoring, right? Yeah. So, one summer I just decided, hey, I'm going to fade the ball. Right. I'm going to learn how to fade it. And, for me, it was, kind of push the club out and just this, aspect of, delivering it, from, not over the top, but, this out to in delivery, right. And that was years and years ago. And, obviously we know now that, the path would be left face open to path to produce that fade. But I'd always hit it far, and I'd always been pretty good at, for one reason or another, my verticals had always been really good. Like even as a kid, watching or people observing my swing, they would say, man, you've got, this good push from the legs. And we quite often will see that in kids because it's their first power source that they develop. They're not, huge rotators when they're young, but they have this capacity in the legs to generate power. So it's something I always did really good. And the aspect of using the legs or using this vertical ground reaction force as we now, as technology goes and we understand these biomechanical terms, when we're using this vertical force and using it appropriately, when we're moving up, we're actually, we're exerting force on the handle up as well. So that has a positive influence on angle of attack. So for me, that fade, yes, it's moving left to right, but my angle of attack was, substantial positive. So my spin wasn't off the map. So it was more like a draw for the, for a left-handed player. Right. It's a left-to-right curvature for a right-handed player. But again, it's it's low spin aspect. So
love it. Okay, let's see a few more just like that.
Sure.
What always strikes me when I watch, long drivers and people just with as much speed as you have, it's just I never ever see the golfer exert as much effort as obviously you guys are extreme and that's the sort of intent is to be extreme. But I don't see people try hard enough to swing fast. Like you've hit, 4 or 5 balls there and you're literally exerting everything in every ball for the most part, which I think people can learn something from that. I think people swing far too much within themselves and are too comfortable knocking it down the fairway and 200 yards, where if they pushed a little bit more, 225 still down the fairway would be meaningful to them.
Right. No, it's, you raise a good point with intent, right? And that's what we see, something in our, I'm one of the instructors for our Power 2 course and our TPI, which the Power 2 is originally one talking about all things power in golf. Right. And then now we have a Power 3, which, goes deep into pressure and force. But, you can do all these things in the gym to get, bring in your physical capacity. Right. You could get stronger, you get faster, you get more powerful. You can work on your mobility. Like you can do all the, we can work on force plates. We can use kinematic tools, to really hone this stuff. But ultimately, it's going to come down to intent, right? Like where you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Definitely.
We've had some great examples where we've had LPGA players, PGA players that, have went to their trainers and they've improved their physical capacity, but they've come back to our TPI, Oceanside Titleist Test Center, TPI, and they're the exact same ball speed. Yep. And they're like, how is this possible? I'm deadlifting 100 pounds more. I'm, I incorporated Olympic weightlifting, kettlebell, rotational med ball slant, like all these great vectors. But the thing that was missing was the intent to move fast. Right. And, and that's the premise behind the stack system, super speed as well, where we're going to take you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it, with some maximum intent swings, right? And the more we do that, it kind of takes us out of our comfort zone, but what it does, it sort of resets the governor, our speed governor, because your body's only going to want to move as fast, as it comfortably wants to.
That's right. Those neuromuscular sort of limitations we put on ourselves, really. It's you said, it's the sort of effort level, the level of exertion that pushes you through those, that lets you know what you're truly capable of, which is significantly higher than what we actually achieve on the golf course.
Right. Working some of these max intent swings, a couple times a week, right? What that does, it raises your baseline, right? And that's the same premise behind the stack system
Totally.
And super speed, right? Where we're going to raise your baseline, and we want to you need to maintain it as well, but we'll raise your baseline, and that's going to pay dividends like through the bag overall.
100%.
Oh.
I mean, that's the flight, isn't it?
That's the one I like, Ian. Just
that thing is up there with the Angels. I mean, that's 413. That's, if we talk about optimizing sort of spin lofts, of managing that window of how much up to how much loft you deliver, face open to the path, you're kind of controlling the nature of the curvature. That's, obviously where your strike can sort of live a little bit in that toe side. That's, as somebody who uses as much vertical force as you do, it's quite understandable or inevitable that we're going to see some handle up to the equation. So dynamically, we see the toe down a little bit more. Handle up shortens the effective length of the driver, so pushes strike out towards the toe. You've got all these things working in favor of one another to produce, let's go into the last there, which was 18.7 and 1600 spin, 385 on the fly.
Right. 11.6 up on it. That's a big factor, right? What I see when somebody has an upward angle of attack, they come in to get fit with a driver, obviously huge impact for long drive, but for the average player, that opens up so many options for us, right?
It does.
When they're down on it, four down on it, it's gonna decrease our options.
Yeah.
Not that we can't do a good job with that, and get them hitting great shots.
Yeah,
right?
and there are outliers that do it. Like Brooks Koepka, everyone will throw the outliers at you, but they're outliers for a reason.
Right.
Because it's not what the top players do or what they should do. That's absolutely hammered. I mean, these efficiency numbers are through the roof for somebody who's swinging at your speeds. I mean, every one of these has been pretty much a max out efficiency or smash factor. And that is what I'd far rather people focus on for themselves, is having a delivery that mirrors much more of what you have than just going, I'm down on it, I hit down on it. Maybe work a little bit, because the driver swing, we get the opportunity, don't we? We tee up. It's the one advantage we get.
Right.
13 clubs or 12 clubs, we're okay hitting down on it. Let's take advantage of that tee and get that angle of attack up.
What we see, we can make, these huge impact in, how are you, this link between how we're using the ground and some of the observed, club dynamics, right? Where's our low point? How can we get, low point back, forward? How is that reflected in how we're using the ground, perhaps laterally, right?
Yeah.
Angle of attack, what we're doing vertically, when we're doing it vertically.
Totally.
So there's a lot of these relationships that when we look at, getting our ground reaction forces maybe, cleaned up, or, I don't want to say optimized, because everybody's going to be a little bit different, but, we can actually make an impact in, kind of this low point control. We can make an impact, many club delivery parameters or we can establish a link, what we're seeing, that ground foot interface.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I was going to say, save it, because I love where you're going with it. You're exactly where I'm going with it, because I want this sort of to be a two-part series. This part to be what to do, and then the next part to be how to do it. Right? And I think we're talking really right now about what to do, which is maximize your delivery, center contact to a degree, or at least err on the right side for you. So if you're somebody who tends to deliver the face open to the path, don't compound that miss with a heel strike. Have, if anything, a marginal toe strike to counter a little bit that face-to-path relationship with a little bit of right-leftward gearing. So that's very much the what to do, and you know, those last two swings are such a perfect example of what people should try to emulate to maximize their own distance. And the other part as well, I mean, that's traveled there 400 yards, and you have hit it offline 16 yards. If we're hitting into a normal fairway at 40, 45 yards, and we're hitting it down there 400, what an advantage. We know the distance, from a strokes gain perspective, the advantage distance gives us. I mean, that's off the charts. Off the charts. Amazing. Okay, guys, there's a little explanation of what we want you to do. I think talking through the meaningful things, and I'm pleased and maybe a little surprised. You're making the same swing as your long drive swing. It's just carried forward with a shorter, more manageable driver. But really, you're not changing the principles of what you do to drive it well.
No, I've hit so many balls, like you know, whether it be with the short one, with the long one,
right.
And you know, I've tried to maximize these parameters. So that's sort of in my delivery DNA.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, guys, I mean, I can't tell you how much of a treat this is for me. I hope it is for you guys as well. Your notepads should be out. This is really what could be meaningful for your own games this year. We see it in the stats all the time that driving is so impactful to lower your scores, lower your handicap, change the output that you get from the tee. So our first opportunity to take that hole by the scruff of the neck is off the tee. Do the good stuff following that, but set yourself up to be further down the fairway, in the fairway, or even just off. Statistically, we know that being just off the fairway but further down there, from a strokes gain perspective, is a bigger advantage than losing 25 yards and being in the fairway every time, as long as it's not at the detriment of a penalty shot or something like that. But learn from what we've got from Jason here. This is what to do. In the next series, we're going to tell you how to do it.